Okay, I quite like that. That's a little bit more funky, a little bit more unusual, perhaps opens up some possibilities for doing more interesting rhythmic things. One thing I'm going to do though is I'm going to change the length of this note. When you're working with percussion parts, drum kit parts, the actual duration or length of the note doesn't have any impact on how long a note sounds for. The only thing it really affects is open hi-hats. Other than that, it doesn't really have any impact. So to create a tidier screen, I usually tend to set these to 16th notes. So have a listen, that won't make any difference to the groove. Great, okay, the next thing I want to do is actually add some notes. One of the slightly irritating and vexing things that GarageBand does is, as a default, when you enter notes within the piano roll editor here, it enters them as crotchet length notes. This is okay some of the time, but especially for creating drum grooves, it's a right pain. Let's say I want to add a note in this gap here. All I need to do is hold down Command, and then with you can see the mouse pointer turns into a pencil tool. Fabulous. I'm going to click in the gap and it's going to enter this note. Now it's in the right place, but it's entered this great big long note, which is a pain. That's not what I wanted to do. So I'm just going to delete that note. There is, however, an easy way to change that. When you're within this editor window here, if you now click on Score, and you'll see there's this tab here that says Insert, and the default is usually quarter note. What I'm going to do is change that to 16th note, so it's the same size note value as the grid that we've got displayed in our editor. So I'm going to click on that, pardon me, go back to the piano roll editor, and now when I enter a note, it should, like that, enter a nice short 16th note, which is going to keep the window much tidier and make it easier to create our grooves. Let's have a listen to that. Okay, that's great. What I want to do now is, I'm quite happy with that note. I want to add a couple more of those. So I could go through this process again. I could use Command and to turn the mouse pointer into a pencil. Also, another handy way is to copy notes and paste them once you've got a note that's the right kind of velocity you want, etc., and note length. Is if I hold down the Option key, which is Alt on your keyboard, and then left click and drag, you can see that a green circle with a plus sign has arrived over the note. As I drag over, you can see it's created another note, and then I can copy that over. So I'm going to add a couple of these. Let's have a listen to that. Okay, not too keen on this note. I quite like the other ones, so I'm just going to muck about a bit until I get the kind of feel that I'm looking for. Okay, now with these notes especially, I want these to be really quite soft, and I don't want the loudness of them to be quite so punchy in the groove. So I'm going to select these two notes here, and then I'm going to drag this little pointer down in the middle of this bar to make them a bit more subtle. Great, okay, now I'm going to do the same thing and add a couple of extra kick drum beats as well. But this one I want to be a little bit more punchy, so I'm going to drag that fader up. And I'm also going to add a kick drum just before the first beat of the next bar. Okay, now I think we've got a slightly more interesting kind of groove. I'm beginning to create a slightly more natural kind of drum kit feel as well. The last thing that I want to have a look at here is a little bit of shaping of the hi-hat part. One common thing that drummers do, especially with slightly slower tempo grooves, is to double up the hi-hat feel. So at the moment we've got hi-hats which are on the eighth notes, pardon me, not quarter notes, eighth notes, like this. But what I want to do is I want to double those up so they're a 16th note feel. Quick and easy way to do this is if I click on F#1 here, that's going to select all those notes. I'm then going to use this option trick to copy these over. So I'm clicking, holding option, dragging over to the right, and it's copied all those over. Let's have a listen to that. Okay, I quite like that. Sounds a tiny bit robotic though, and that's partly because all the note values are exactly the same velocity as the previous note that I've copied over. So I'm just going to drag the new ones we've edited down a little bit, change the velocity. Let's have a listen to that. Okay, that sounds a little bit more natural to me. The other thing I want to do is add a couple of open hi-hats as well, because we've just got closed hi-hats here. So what I'm going to do is, rather than just entering new notes, I'm going to move a couple of the existing notes and just see how that affects the groove. So I'm going to try this one over here. Open hi-hats are always on this note here, which is your A#1. Let's have a listen to that. Okay, I quite like where it is, but it's a bit too quiet, so I'm going to pull up that velocity. Fabulous. So there we have basic 8th note groove, which we began by entering in real time. We've now done a lot more shaping and editing on that groove, but rather than trying to do that all by entering notes in real time, we've explored ways that you can start working with 16th note grooves. You set up your 16th note grid value, and then we're adding some funky snares and additional kicks and so on, looking at open hi-hats. We've got much more interesting grooves. Fabulous, have fun.